right. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. There's only a few of us today. I will be doing as much live demo as I can, but there is some information on universal design for learning as well as information design that I think is really critical in kind of understanding the why behind making some changes to how we might be creating content for our students, whether that is on Seesaw or Canvas, or even when you're designing worksheets for students in class or newsletters that go home to your parent community. So as we get started, if there's any questions, like I said, just feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll try and answer them as we get going. My name is Nicole Carter. I'm a part of the digital curriculum crew, and I also help support secondary literacy. So I am actually creating a ton of digital content all the time. And these are some of the things that I have really gotten to know pretty critically over the last couple of years. And I think it also kind of fits with my current philosophy on the fact that our students are really, really savvy consumers. They're on social media, they're watching YouTube, they're doing all of these different things that have really highly curated content that is engaging for students. Now, we want to get away from passive consuming to making sure our students are like creating and showing what they know. But a lot of that has to do with how we are designing the information and content we're giving our students from the very beginning. There are programs. We're going to be talking a lot about Canva today. I probably will put more emphasis on Canva, but we'll also spend a little bit of time talking about Adobe Express. It's called Adobe Express, Cloud Express now instead of Adobe Spark, I think is what we used to call it. And also talking a little bit about Canvas. So I'm really kind of engineering this a little bit more towards the secondary, but if you're here and you do stuff for elementary, this will still fit for you as well. But I will kind of take a moment out and talk a little bit about some switches and changes we should be doing in Canvas as well. If you need me, my time is your time. If you're sitting there and you're trying to design something and you just need a thought partner, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you want me to come and sit with you while you're working during your prep period, like that is my job. So please don't hesitate at any time to reach out. This is really an important part, I think, of equity, in that we're trying to make things usable and accessible for all students. And also really thinking about how the design of your content matters, whether you're projecting it on the screen, printing it out on a paper, or putting it in a way that students can easily understand when they're moving through Seesaw or Canvas. So it all relates, even when you don't think it does, it really does. Providing choice for students, thinking about your font choices, all of that comes into play and is a big part of equity. So just, we might not have enough time for us to really dive deep into a discussion, but maybe in the chat, I'm just curious, when we think about the idea of accessibility, removing barriers for our students, and thinking about that engagement piece that I'm talking about, how does that play into lesson design for you? How often are you actually creating content? And is this an area, maybe you're here, so clearly maybe this is an area that you just are curious and want to learn more about. Just feel free to kind of drop your thoughts in the chat, and you can continue to reflect as I kind of dive deeper here as well. Kind of move my screen around a little bit. Perfect. Okay. And I think we're just going to jump right into universal design, because like I said, I really don't have much time here. So I am bringing to you the concept of universal design for learning, for education, as seen from CAS.org. And again, I'll bring the slide deck to you. You will have access to it. I'm not going to show the video, but we're kind of going to be talking about this framework and how it can really optimize the way that you teach and the way that you provide your content. Thank you, Emily, for putting that into the chat. Yeah, sometimes there are things that are provided, especially in the math realm. Your content toasters really provide a lot of stuff for you, whether that's on formative or whatever. But yeah, I love that you're really interested in learning how you can use things, especially on Canva. And if you haven't explored Canva, it's amazing to me that we have education free access to it. I was paying like $120 a year to access the pro version of Canva. That's how much I liked it. And I haven't been able to find that we have any limited access from a free educational account than what I was paying for previously. So it's really a fabulous product, and I'm so excited that we have access to it. So yeah, it's all about how students learn. So I don't want to play the video. Pause for a second. There we go. It's all about how students learn and kind of putting that into practice when we're creating, when we're designing. So we want to be thinking from a perspective of, how do I engage my students? How do I motivate my students? How do I stimulate their interests? How am I making sure that I am thinking about representation in the content that I'm providing? How am I presenting the information so that different learners can see it and view it in different ways? Canvas has some really great accessibility tools that automatically point out to you, hey, you haven't, described this image that you've put in here, and you might have, students that are hard of seeing and need an explanation for what this image is. Maybe I always think of it from a perspective of, maybe my Canvas instructions have gotten a little long-winded, and I will then go in and use the record tool and record myself reading the instructions, because you never know. Students are more apt to actually listen and auditorially process your directions than read a bunch of directions on Canvas. So I take advantage of that tool. So really thinking about the tools that are being provided for you so that you can access different learning styles. And then also really thinking about using technology to differentiate. I don't know how a teacher in a classroom of 30, 40 plus can really truly differentiate for students if we're not taking advantage of the technology. And so I think just the more you play around with it and know what is available to you, the easier some of this stuff can become. It seems like a really daunting task, I think, when you first start, but the more it becomes second nature, then you just do it automatically. So in terms of how we do these things, I'm going to go through a couple of different examples. There's too much on the screen here for us to really read through, and I actually like the next slides more. And I think that they'll be a little bit more transferable for you to see how you can use it in your classroom. So really getting to know all of your learners is like the #1 goal. And if you haven't seen any of the information on, again, I'm kind of speaking to those of us that are using Canvas in the district, we have a launching Canvas unit or module, one for elementary and one for secondary. The secondary one would be great to use in advisory, but I mean, if you're just a content teacher, I would want to use it because it touches on scaffolding skills in Canvas first. Secondly, though, it gives you information on getting to know the learners in your classroom. It focuses on Dr. Goldie Mohammed's identity work. And so, we're teaching kids how to record their voice or record media in Canvas, but they're recording how to pronounce their name. That's an essential piece for you to get to know your learners, right? Or it has students answer a Canvas quiz on their learning styles. Also really great information for you to know at the beginning of the year. So if you haven't checked out that module, I really would highly recommend it. I just think there's a ton of really good information in there to help you understand your learner. But then also to start thinking about how you can provide those intentional options. Again, building in Canvas, one of the big pieces there is being flexible, providing modules for different styles of learners, allowing students to self-pace within Canvas with their modules, providing more choice. It's key. Again, I don't know how the average teacher now doesn't have or use technology to be able to accomplish some of these things. And providing space for them to internalize and transfer what they're learning. That's also kind of key. So reflections, discussion threads, and Canvas, those are all going to be really good pieces to use. So yeah, as I kind of said before, presenting things in different ways, presenting content in different ways, text, audio, hands-on information, different formats from oral presentations to group projects, just different ways to keep students motivated. This is all really good pedagogy, but understanding that it's coming from this place of universal design and accessibility. That I think is kind of the key. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? I'm doing them because it's good for all learners. So in terms of ways to do more engagement in class, am I giving students choice and autonomy? Am I giving them learning that's relevant to their needs and their wants? How would I know that if I'm not understanding them on a more like personal level, asking them questions about what they're interested in? And then how can I be supportive of students and their needs as well? So I think, again, surveys, quizzes, little get to know you activities at the beginning of the year, all super helpful for this. I think this, I really wanted to point out again, that Canvas, launching Canvas unit would be really helpful here. Again, additional ideas, survey students, I said that already, choice menus for working towards goals. That's kind of a Canvas 3.0 section, getting to know, like using quizzes, and then based on their answers or results in their quizzes, you can use what's called mastery path or even prerequisites to help students move through your content. Which the next bullet says using requirements for self-pacing. Really thinking about your navigation within Canvas too. Like, are you giving specific to-do tasks? I love in Canvas providing like a module overview page that tells students, here are your targets, here's what you need to be successful, and here is what you need to turn in, and just really being clear. There's nothing better in education than being really clear and concise with your instructions. But part of that too is that navigation, because you can link all of your pieces, all of your to-do list items and stuff within that page on Canvas so that kids can easily navigate through your Canvas course. Additionally, have I considered how I'm providing printed texts and pictures and displaying different charts? If you're a person that constantly takes notes on your whiteboard, are you thinking about ways to snap an image of that and put that into Canvas somehow, or put it into a Google folder that students have access to? Likewise, if it's maybe not a whiteboard, maybe you're using anchor charts in the classroom. How do students get access to that anchor chart if they're at home working on a project or something? So how are you providing access to different things like that? Some printed text, I just want to make sure I don't forget this. There are some texts that are easier to translate for any of our students that are coming in with language needs. So, Open Sans, Times New Roman, Arial, while they're not really fun fonts to use, those are easier in translation, Google Translation, than using something else. So that's something to think about, right? So yeah, how am I providing different ways for them to engage with what I'm giving them? And then, as I said before, pay attention. At the bottom of Canvas, when I'm giving directions, there actually gives you a word count. And I've noticed that I've started to pay attention when I go above 300 words in directions, then I usually will record myself reading through those directions, so that I'm not losing students in that process. I also too start to think, if I get way past 300, is there a way to chunk out the information, build another assignment, build another page, so that I'm not giving too much in one place? So here are some examples for those accessibilities within Canvas, just if you haven't seen them before. So there's this little accessibility guy in the corner that you can click on, and it will actually go through any of the assignments, pages, discussions, whatever, and tell you what some things that you should maybe think about changing or fixing. Not necessarily knowing if you have a person in your class that might need those accessibility options. I just think it's good for us to start thinking about it. And then once you get it done, it will throw confetti at you and say, good job, you've gone through the accessibility. You also can kind of see right next to the accessibility person there where it says 110 words. That's the part I was talking about, where it gives me a word count and I can pay attention to how long-winded I'm getting when I'm building out my content. Okay. So in terms of providing different ways to express themselves, giving options to students, again, the timing and the pacing, paper pencil tasks might be better for students than doing a digital task, and vice versa. So providing those options is always a good thing. I am a person that once I realized how beneficial it was for me as a teacher in efficiency with grading and not lugging big milk crates of spirals home and back every day, I'm a big proponent of providing options for students to write paper pencil, but then I would then make it a routine in my class that they take a picture of that and upload it to the assignment on Canvas so that I'm taking just a laptop home and not all of those papers. So that's something I would just think about for your benefit, less of the student benefit. And then also too, thinking about assistive technology. Usually if you have a student that needs assistive technology, you're notified at the beginning of the year. But if you start to notice that you have a student that might need assistive technology, knowing who to contact within our SPED department is also really helpful. Emily's asking, do we have any good tips or directions on how students can take good pictures? You know, we might, Emily, I might need to look into that. I feel like in our Canvas, launching the Canvas unit, we were very specific in providing directions for how to do stuff like that as we built those skills. So you might want to check in that module and see, usually down at the very bottom, when we give the directions to students on what they need to do to turn stuff in, that's where it would be a video on how to do that. If not that, then step-by-step instructions, like on screenshotting something or whatever. I'm pretty sure we have a video on it. It would be located there. Otherwise, I'd have to dig through my YouTube channel, try and find it for you. So I think the going through the module is going to be the easiest thing for you to look for. Okay, I'm going to kind of keep going here because there's still a lot for us to think about. Calendars and checklists. Canvas is really good about just providing that in general for us. And then also allowing students to use a variety of formats. If you teach them early in the year how to use Adobe Cloud Express, how to use Canvas, how to use different things in Google Slides, and then you have an end product that needs to be turned in, and you say, you know, you guys pick, I don't care, whichever one you want to use, Google Slides, Adobe Spark, whatever. You pick what you want and you turn it in. I got the assignment on Canvas and it will accept all three of those. And then kids can really be creative and use what they want to show what they know. And I think that that's really beneficial for them. They get to choose the best tool for the job. Additionally, we're really pushing read and write this year, which I know we've done a lot of training for our SPED department, but it's really a great tool, an extension through Chrome. So it's accessible for our students on their Chromebooks to do a lot of speech to text, text to speech, highlighting, creating word dictionaries. And also there's an additional piece that we're moving towards for reading and writing through PDFs that comes from read and write. So it's really just an extensive tool, and I would highly recommend, if you haven't looked into using it, take a look at it, because it would be something that I would use on a regular basis in my classroom. And then additionally, as I said before, different languages and translation, really thinking about your font choice and your readability when you're projecting onto the screen, understanding basic concept of design. You know, a bright blue background with yellow writing is really hard for students to see at the back of the room. While it's fun to use fun handwriting style fonts in Google or on anything really, when you're projecting that onto the screen, it can become hard to read. So you really got to pay attention to all of those pieces as you're creating content. Additionally, you kind of need to start thinking about what things look like on a, like, your student's screen is actually really small on the Chromebook, but then also you might have parents or even students at home accessing your content from a phone. That's an extra step, and maybe again another 3.0 step to do, to actually open up your content on your phone and see what it looks like. But it is something to be paying attention to when you're creating content. Especially considering the Chromebook and how small it is. When you're wanting students to do an activity that forces them into different tabs, or to have a Google Doc open while looking at a website and at the same time writing in their spiral, just thinking about what that feels like for them to access is good. Also, 3 clicks or less. The less clicks you force the kids to do, the better. That's good for all people, including adults. And then the information design principles, which I'm going to quickly go over. There's, again, this next slide has way too much information on it, so it's really more of a resource for you to come back to later. But it's this idea of graphic design. And I know you might be saying, I'm a teacher, I'm not a graphic designer, but in reality, you kind of are. We kind of are. We create content that people consume all the time. You are a graphic designer. So again, using things like Canva is going to make that really easy and helpful. Now, this is something we're starting to teach third, fourth, and fifth graders. So we actually have some lessons on all of these principles of design. The idea is that if they understand that concept, then their end published pieces for different projects in the classroom will come out that much better for them and for you to be able to get through, you know, horrible design choices that they might make because they think it's cool, and better understand that they do actually understand the content and what they're doing because they created something that actually makes sense. So these are taken straight from those lessons, and I'm just going to briefly touch on them. So principles of design, when thinking about alignment, thinking about where things are spaced, how they're positioned. Graphic designers get really, really testy on stuff that I think the majority of the public would never recognize or understand. But to some extent, we need to understand that we should be placing things on the screen within relation to each other. And Google Slides, Canva, they all have little tools to help you when you drag things around. Those tools and sight lines will help you identify when you've lined them up with the surrounding content. So pay attention to that. If you're creating newsletters in your classroom or you're putting content together in a Google Doc or something, when you have things aligned and you're thinking about left align and right align, especially with text, it's easier for you to see things when you group them together. So left alignment, right alignment, stuff like that you might be doing in a Google Doc with your content. And I mean, if you don't know how to access that, please let me know and I can show you. Another thing to think about is the relationship that they have to each other. This is kind of nitty gritty. I'm going to keep going. The other thing to think about is balance, symmetry. So when you start looking at Canva and you start looking at some of their templates, they are either going to provide you with things that are symmetry or asymmetrical. And the asymmetrical stuff becomes more engaging than the symmetrical. The symmetrical can sometimes become boring. So really thinking about, I'm using photos to describe the difference here, but really thinking about using templates to help you achieve some of these things, because I went over that really fast and you might just be sitting there going, this doesn't make any sense to me and I don't need to know that. But I think when you start to look at stuff like, hey, I want my students to create an infographic. Well, asymmetry in infographics is easy to attain when you do like a Z timeline or movement through the infographic. That's an example of asymmetry. When you look at templates where they're creating either a PowerPoint presentation or a flyer or even a book, the templates created will do those asymmetrical designs, so you don't even have to think about it. And again, I think that's where understanding some of the principles just very lightly and then going into Canva and going, oh, someone already did all this work for me, but I like the way that this looks, so I'm going to use it. So again, the design and templates are already there. The additional piece to remember is that sometimes repetition is really helpful. It brings emphasis and focal points to the stuff that you're creating. So I try to use images over and over again within like my Canvas modules so that it reminds the students, this is my to-do list. This is where I get the information of my steps to do this assignment. That repetition throughout the school year is really helpful to be consistent. Okay. All right. So all of that obviously takes some timing. I wanted to talk a little bit about color and give you a cool thing to use to help with color, picking out colors that are cohesive and work together. So I'm going to open up a new tab real quick. This is a website called coolers.co. I'm going to put it in the chat. What's cool about this is you don't really have to make an account. It's free to make the account. But basically all it does is it creates like a color palette. And I don't need a tutorial, thanks. Okay, so once it does this, it creates like a great color palette, and you can say to yourself, you know, okay, I like the blue, I like the green, but I don't like these other colors. And then you can hit the bar again, and it'll give you more colors that should match. These seem awful, I hate them. This is okay, I don't mind that. And then you just can keep on going until you find like a color palette that you like. And then if you like that color palette, you can copy that color and go straight into, let's see, I'm going to open up this guy. And you can change around your colors on things, right? So add in a shape and go into custom colors and paste in my color combo that I just grabbed from this color palette. So again, knowing that stuff like this is out there helps you when you're looking to be a better designer. The other thing, we've talked a little bit about your typeface and really thinking about when we go into adding fonts, for example, in Google, you have this like filtering up here that shows you, you know, oh, I want a cute handwriting style thing. Okay, great. But it also shows you fonts that are good for display. So projectors, right? They're nice, big fonts that are easy to read. So some things to play around with in terms of filter. And then again, remembering if you do need things translated, Open Sans, Times New Roman, Arial, those kind of very basic fonts are going to be easier for translation services. And then also kind of thinking about the tone. We talk about tone a lot when I used to be an English teacher. So we talk about tone, but like your tone in the content creation is also really important. Okay, let's go into Canva. Watching my time. Okay, we're doing good. We're going to go into Canva. Now, when you log into Canva, if you haven't ever been on Canva, you're just going to use your Beaverton email and password, your single sign-on, and you'll be able to get in and create to your heart's content. Within Canva, you have the ability to, just like within Google, you have all of your recent designs that you've worked on down below. You have the ability to do a search and then also to search their pre-made products. You can also click on templates. And what I like when you click on templates is that it actually not only provides with the same thing that was up above, education presentations, whiteboards, etc., but then it also can help you browse by subject. So I know Emily said she was a math teacher. I don't know. Did I miss math? Math. Here we go. So you can click on templates specifically for math, which I think is really great. Some of them are worksheets. Some of them are presentations. You get the idea. So you've got templates that are searchable by those subject areas. You also have these great classroom decor kits, which is just a total side note and has really nothing to do with content or curriculum. It's more about creating decorations for your classroom. But what I think is so interesting is they've got these little templates that you can use for creating banners and labels, and they all can be like one specific style. So this is a better one than the last one. So you can see that it gives you course cards. It gives you things to use in Canvas. It gives you things to use to create a poster, to make a presentation, and it's all within the same theme, which could be super helpful. Okay, I had this little presentation that I just want to make sure that I'm like hitting all of the cool stuff. Okay, in Canva, beyond templates, basic navigation of stuff. So once you've created or picked something that you're going to customize, which let me go back. Let's just say I want to use this ocean agenda slide. I just click on it. It shows me more things that might be similar. And then I just say customize this template, and then it just opens for me. Once I've set that, up here in the left-hand navigation, it gives me access to even more templates. So as I build a page, I can use this template and then just add the different template backgrounds or layouts as I build. You also, underneath templates, have the access to elements or icons or pictures. So you can literally search anything and then it will come up with, let's do plant, I guess. So you can then pick or tell it that you want nothing but graphics, for example, or you can tell it I want photos, or it even will start to give you videos too, which can be really cool depending on how you're using this. I personally love the access to all of these graphics. And again, I haven't found a limit to being able to find icons and graphics that I need. Before I would do like a Google search or I'd go to Noun Project or whatever. Not anymore. I come straight here and I use this elements. If you found something previously or you have like an icon that is used, you know, for formative or something, you can upload images and then add them into anything that you're creating. And also there's another cool piece or feature. I'm wondering if I have the ability to do that. When you add an image, you also can go in to edit that image. And they have a really powerful background remover, which is pretty great. And then you can erase and restore different portions if it doesn't do a good enough job for you. But I found that I've come in and used this background remover a ton. Of course, it's going to take a long time with this one, but there you go. I wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you though. There you go. I mean, that's pretty good. I'd probably come in and add in some of these pieces that it accidentally took out, like this section here. So if I went into restore, I can just use this little tool and restore this section above that it took out. Right? So that's like really cool. Previously, I had to go to a completely different website in order to do something like this. Okay, so uploads, I talked about that. Okay, so underneath the text option, they have some font combinations that I sometimes get sucked into down below. Otherwise, you can just add headings, subheadings over here. And then once you do that, you have the ability, just like in Google Slides, to search through their font library and change things up. I also wanted to show you that you do have the ability to do rounded text, which I don't think Google Slides lets us do that. So if I go into effects, once I've selected the font, if I go into effects, it allows me to click on curve, and then I can go up or down with that curve, which is kind of a neat feature. So that's just within the fonts. You also can add any kind of effect or even animate items depending on what you're using it for. Most of the time, I'm not necessarily using presentations in Canva that often. Most of the time I'm creating documents or I'm creating icons or something that I can download. I'm not necessarily needing the animation feature that much, but it is there, which is nice to know. You also have the ability to create what they call, I think you have the ability, I'm saying that now, but now I'm kind of wondering. I know I asked that when we were talking to the developers recently, but you have this ability to create what's called a brand kit. So if we go back to this concept of a color palette, I might be kind of going way off topic here, but if we go back to this idea of having a color palette, let's say you decide, I like these colors, this fits, I'm just going to use this for this unit. You can come back into Canva and build out those colors, and then they'll show up here. So you just keep coming back and using them again and again and again, which can be really, really helpful. They've also increased how they share, how you are able to share things. So very similar to Google products, you can share the link so that people can edit, comment, or view, and change it from anyone with the link to only you can access it. And then obviously you have the ability to download anything that you might need. And you can collaborate in Canva as well. So if you're working with a grade level team member or department team, you can Sorry, my timer's going off, so I'm watching my time here. Sorry, setting another little timer. So, okay, so you can create a brand template, but not a brand kit. Okay, so hopefully the brand kit piece is coming soon, because I know a lot of people have been asking them to do that. And then again, you can invite other people to work in the same document with you, just like you can with Google Slides and Google Docs. Now, another cool thing that I wanted to talk about, and I have it in my presentations over here. If you do a presentation in Canva, they have these short codes that you can use when you're in present mode. If you have your sound up really loud right now, I'm going to advise you to turn it down, because I noticed when I did this before, it was kind of loud. Excuse me. So I'm going to go into present mode and watch what happens. I just hit the U button and it gave me this curtain call feature. Or the M, I think is, yeah, mic drop, which is awesome. The D is a drum roll, which can be very loud. Okay. And there's obviously more within their features. So you can add bubbles, you can do a quiet emoji to tell kids to slow down or to be quiet. You can use B for blurring the content when you want them focusing on you and what is and not what's up behind you. Other really cool feature is you can do anywhere from 1 to 9 to create a quick timer. I mean, I use timers all the time. Clearly, I've already been using one over here to the side. So the timer, I think, is a super cool feature. I would be maybe convinced to go into using Canva for presentations in the classroom for these features. Otherwise, I'm pretty okay with just using Google Slides, but those are pretty neat and could be really cool. They also have, if you've ever used Nearpod before, they have a Canva Live feature. So you'd have students go to canva.live and then give them a code, and then they could come into your presentation and they can ask questions. They can, depending on what you do with it, they can answer questions. It's like a live Nearpod experience basically, but through Canva. So that's something cool to kind of play around with as well. In terms of things that you could have the students do in Canva, because they also have a free education account. So how does it use in class? So graphic organizers, posters, just like you would have a table group create a poster, why not create a digital poster? Comic strips, storyboards. Although thinking about storyboards, I'd like to remind everybody that we now have access to Book Creator. We've paid for Book Creator for the district. So I would go to Book Creator before I would come to Canva probably to create storyboards or books, right? And then, you know, obviously if you are sending home a newsletter in any capacity, I would use Canva. I'd go in and look at their newsletter templates and use Canva. It's going to come across so slick and be so easy because someone's already developed it for you and you're just plugging in the information. And in terms of Adobe Spark or Adobe, it's Cloud Express now. That's going to kill me. It was Adobe Spark for so long, but we need to remember Adobe Creative Cloud Express. It's long-winded, but that's where they want us. And they're really doing a lot of the similar things that Canva is doing in terms of providing you with templates and ideas. It is also, when you go to sign in, it is the exact same process using your Beaverton login and sign in. So I'm going to log in with a school account. Oh, come on. Emails are so long. I apologize. Okay, so once you're in here, very similar. It maybe has a little bit less options in terms of, you know, if you were to go in and create a poster, they've got themes, pre-picked themes for you to choose from, templates, etc. It's very similar to Canva. I think once you figure out one, you'll be able to figure out the other. But off to the side, usually you've got color palettes that are pre-picked for you. You can add in images. Over here, you've got access to photos and shapes. I feel like, oh, design assets is what they're calling their images and stuff now. So it's super interesting. So similar process, using these two tools will make you look like you understand graphic design. Bottom line. Okay, so we talked about Canva, we talked about Adobe Cloud. I also talked about coolers. I also talked about how to add your custom colors to a Google slide deck. And then just briefly to kind of go over some of my expectations or my thought process on building in Canvas. And that is to take what you understand about universal design and information design and looking at lessons in Canvas. This is not from anyone in our district. This was on the Canvas Commons. But what I would like for us to do or to avoid is 12-point font Times New Roman text that has no engaging features, does not list out step-by-step instructions. I want us to put maybe a little bit more effort into it. And then once it's built, even though that might take a little bit more time the first time you build it, next year you can come back and add even more to it, and it's going to be even easier and you're going to be able to make it even better. So I'd like us to move from, again, that kind of boring 12-point font Times New Roman and add in very specific pieces that draw the eye, focal points on important information, icons that you can create once, upload into your Canvas and use again and again, like how to be successful, how to turn things in. Navigational buttons like that home button is also something to think about. Those step-by-step instructions, taking screenshots of what they see so that they know what buttons to click on to respond with how you want them to respond. I also include navigational pieces on how to access things on their Chromebooks, because our MacBooks are slightly different than their Chromebooks, right? So taking a screenshot on the Chromebook, what does that look like? What buttons do they need to push? If you find that students are not doing a good job with capitalizing things, providing some information on how to capitalize would be really helpful, right? And again, thinking about that user experience, they do have a touch screen, so they can draw and mark up on PDFs, and using their stylus. That's the whole reason we bought the newer Chromebooks, was so that the kids had access to a stylus. Keep in mind though, it's an 11-inch screen, so bouncing back and forth between tabs, and then submission on Canvas. How do you do that, and can you provide direct instructions so that they can be more successful? Okay. Thinking also about your module builds, using the text headers to help students with navigation, knowing the different types of icons in Canvas and doing a quick search to see, oh my gosh, I'm only using pages and I haven't tried to use an assignment. I haven't tried to use a quiz. I haven't tried to use a discussion. That is a way to offer up different choices and ways for students to show what they know. So differentiate how you're putting together some of your content. And I think we're going to kind of pause there. There's a lot to throw at you. There's a lot of information provided, links and resources on this slide deck, so I'll make sure to provide that for you in the chat. But what kinds of things might you need moving forward as you create content throughout the year to be thinking about accessibility and designing for our students as savvy consumers? What more could we focus on, I guess, is kind of the thought I'm going to leave you with.